And the chair will now recognize himself for 5 minutes. To Mr. Teleblu, first question would be, what specific non-nuclear sanctions and additional designations do you believe would be most effective in combating Iranian sponsorship of terrorism?
Thank you very much for your question, Congressman. The immediate one that comes to mind is to pursue sanctions actually on Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps pursuant to Executive Order 13224. Getting that listed, I think, is key because that is one of the major drivers of Iran's non-nuclear threats. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force, for instance, is the force that oversees Iran's ballistic missile program. Going after the IRGC pursuant to that executive order, and then asking the intelligence community and the administration for additional targets that liaise with the IRGC and can be targeted for being shells for this entity, should be gone after, both at the statutory level and at the administration.
Mr. McGinnis, on a related note, as you may know, Senator Ted Cruz in January introduced legislation calling on the State Department to assess IRGC's suitability for designation as a foreign terrorist organization. What are your thoughts about that? Do you agree with your colleague there that designation of IRGC under 13224 would be prudent?
Yes, I think for designation of as a foreign terrorist organization as an FTO, there is certainly a moral argument to make for that. I think from a practical standpoint, I think designation under Executive Order 13224 is most likely sufficient to achieve your objectives. I think that there is a great consideration, as Dr. Maloney pointed out, that as we look at potential retaliation from the Iranians, that not to say that should stop us from taking any of these measures, but we need to be very much prepared for potential repercussions insofar as how that may change rules of engagement with the IRGC, both at sea and with our forces there in places like Iraq and elsewhere. And that I think these are things that we need to be thinking through. And so these are areas that I think designation under EO 13224 is probably it gets us what we want. But I'm certainly very much drawn to the moral argument of designating under FTO. And I also agree that that is the pathway that will get us the most effect on for pulling back on support for terrorism.
Thank you. And Dr. Ottolenghi, Dr. Maloney warned against downplaying the dividends of the nuclear deal in alleviating the urgency of Iran's nuclear ambitions. But given the forward movement of Iran's ballistic missile program, given the tests using missiles that are capable of carrying nuclear payloads, do you disagree with that analysis? Do you agree with that analysis? And can you speak to whether or not these non-nuclear activities have been emboldened as a result of lingering questions about the reliability of the inspections regime?
Thank you for your question. 2 points. First of all, I think that when one looks at a nuclear program, of course, the question of delivery systems is essential and a part of a nuclear program. The omission of the ballistic missile program from the JCPOA, of course, indicates that this is by no means a comprehensive arrangement, as my colleague pointed out in his statement. But it also creates an opportunity for the United States to target sectors of the Iranian economy that are complicit in the Iran ballistic missile program, whether it's the financial institutions that facilitate the transactions for procurement, the companies that procure, the extracting activities for the raw materials or the transport or the insurance of the vectors that carried the technology and the procurement for the missile program. All these are areas and opportunities for targeting. As for whether the regime has been emboldened, I think that that's very clear, not just emboldened, but also provided additional resources to pursue its most nefarious activity more actively and assiduously.
Thank you. My time has expired, so the chair will yield back and